Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today's card is this beautiful floral card with a pink and honey colour scheme. It's a small stamp, so I've made a feature of it by putting it into the middle and then creating a panel on the outside. I've blended the inks myself in an ombre from pink through to honey and back. And then we've put a lovely vellum strip across it with "Just for You" in gold and a few Nouveau drops there to finish it off. We've used metallic gilding polish around the panel and then created a pink background in the picked raspberry distress oxide. If you'd like to see how it's done, please stay tuned. Let's get started then. So I've got myself here just a basic piece of stamping card, and I'm going to start with that. I've also got cut a piece of backing paper that this will sit on, which we'll colour with the same colours we're going to use in our inking. And I've got my stamps and my sentiments here ready as well, which we'll obviously walk through as we go through it. So first of all, I'm going to get a scrap piece of paper, and you can see here I've been playing with these already. And then my smoothies in orange and pink, and then my 3 inks. I've got here from the Distress Oxide collection, I've got Wild Honey, which is a nice orange, I've got Kitsch Flamingo, and I've got Picked Raspberry. Picked Raspberry is quite a dominant pink, so that's the one we'll use the least of. Kitsch Flamingo and Wild Honey will do. Sorry if you can hear my little dog. He's obviously barking at something going on outside. Cool. Right, I'm going to start with my Kitsch Flamingo. I'm going to use this to just lay some pink down top and bottom. So I want roughly a layer about the size of the smoothie with a bit of white space at the bottom. I'm not being too precise about this. This is one of those kind of messy cards, so it doesn't really matter too much. So using my smoothie, just working that ink, adding more ink as I go, darkening it as I head towards the middle of the card. What I'm now going to do, I'm going to turn my smoothie around, use the other end on the picked raspberry, and just put a line of picked raspberry across the middle of my card. That way that gives me a kind of border to work up to, darker in the middle and obviously fading as it gets to the outside edge. I'm then going to take my orange smoothie and lay down the Wild Honey. This is a really nice colour combination. Pink and orange work really well together. I'm just going to do that top and bottom using really gentle pressure. And then obviously the more pressure I add, the harder the colour gets. And then I'll start blending those into the colours that they sit between. And you can see when I'm blending, I'm starting to kind of turn the smoothie, and that sort of starts to get the colours working together. Obviously you go in with that colour, then you take the previous smoothie and you work back with the previous colour. So I'm giving them all a little bit of a mix there. Then I'm going to take the smoothie and go in on the raspberry. So I'll now do that there, top and bottom. Turning it and just kind of starting to get those blending together. And you can see it's creating a different colour in the middle. Then the same actually on the picked raspberry, because we need to blend that into the oranges as well. You can move up and down, try and drag the colour. What we don't want is really hard edges. And then you keep going back in with the same smoothie. And obviously don't add colour every time. If you're just trying to blend, maybe you don't need to add more ink. If you're just trying to deepen the colour, then you do. And just work on those edges. So the pieces where you've got the borders of the colours, that's where you need to spend most of the time. And I find turning it is quite a good way to get the ink to kind of blend in. What I'm also going to do is just go around the edges there a little bit. We don't want completely white. We don't want loads of colour, but we don't want completely white for sure. I quite like this messy style. And then obviously add maybe a bit of yellow around the areas where it's yellow on the edges. And then just work your way quite hot. We've got quite a harsh area here, so I'm going to just work on that for a little bit. Just sort of going in, not adding any more ink, just sort of smoothing out really the ink that's there. And then again with the honey. There we go. So we've now got a piece of paper, plenty of colour. Excuse me, I must just get a drink. And you can see that's looking quite nice. Okay, I'm going to just pop my sponges away. Keep them in a tub so that it keeps them nice and moist, and sometimes you don't even need to re-ink them, you can just use the residue ink. Pop my inks away. And then what I'm going to do is just give this a good dry, because obviously it's had quite a lot of ink on it, and for us to be able to stamp on it, we need to really dry it out. So I'm just going to take my heat gun and just give that a blast. This isn't a great stamping card, I have to say. It's one that I bought that wasn't very good, and I'm just trying to kind of use up the pack. Okay, that'll do. What we're going to do now, just give it a few splots so that we've got a little bit of interest in the background. I'm using my brush. There's one big one gone down there already. But I'm just literally going to spring and flick just to put some water on there. Just gives it a little bit more interest. If I blot it, you'll see where the water has landed. It's taken some of the ink off and made an interesting effect. Just do a few more little ones. There we go. Dry it again, blot it, and that will look good. Need to just dry it again. And always dry the back as well. Now, what I'm going to do is take my stamping platform and, sorry, banging the camera there, pop this onto there. But before I do any inking on it, I'm going to go over it with my anti-static pad, because it's obviously been wet. It's got a lot of ink on it. We just need to make sure that we're going to get a good impression. The stamp I've got here, it's a brand new stamp, so I've taken it out, I've given it a clean. I've stamped a few times with it and it didn't stamp awfully well at first, but now I've kind of bent it around a bit, given it a clean, got a bit of ink on it, and it's been used before. Hopefully it should be okay. So let's pop that down just in the middle by eye. We're not going to measure, and lift that up with the stamping platform, and then we're ready to stamp. Now we know that's in there, I'm just going to put that down. Okay, so I've got my ink here. This is VersaFine Onyx Black, which I use for all my black stamping, and I'm just going to give that a good go over. Now this ink pad is not new, it's quite old, and actually I've got a replacement waiting in the wings, so I have to go over it a lot just to make sure I get a good proper even coverage. It's not a bad thing to do anyway, use every part of the ink pad, so don't scrimp on this piece. Obviously spend a little bit of time And similarly, when you pop the stamp down, again, give that some time. Give it some time for the ink to take to the paper. Make sure you press all over the stamp, particularly in the areas you know may not work amazingly. Right, just giving that a minute. Let's have a look and see what that looks like. Okay, that's not bad. I am actually going to do it again now, just to get that colour really nice and dark. And then what we're going to do, we're also going to emboss it with clear emboss powder. So I'm just going to give that one more go. While I let that sit for a second, just get my embossing powder ready. Keep it in a tub. If you've watched my videos, you'll know that already probably. Okay, so that's our second impression, and I'm just going to now pop that completely into the powder. Make sure every little bit of that is covered. Tap that off, and then straight away in with the heat gun, and we'll heat that. This is where we see the magic. It will now go to a lovely high gloss black shine, which will be really nice contrast with the background. Make sure you melt all of the embossing powder, and again heat the back just to make sure. There we go. That looks quite good. So I'm just going to pop that on the side for the moment, get my cloth and just give my stamp a good clean. Always good to clean them as you go along. It takes a few seconds. Go. That's clean. Just gonna give that a little dab with some kitchen towel, and then I'll pop that back into its packet. This must be a right and wrong way up. I think that is it. Yeah, there we go. This is an All and Create stamp. It was one I bought, or I got in a bundle I bought actually. It was I think £25 for a whole load of different stuff of theirs. I really like their brand. And it was one of many nice stamps I actually got in their goodie bag. So it's number 309, and I think it's called Pom Pom Flowers. Yes, there we go. Okay, right, what we're going to do now then, while we've got the stamping platform out, is we're going to stamp the sentiment. So I've got this piece of vellum. I'm going to just stamp in gold on it, and we want it in the middle, so I'm going to stamp to this side. I think we'll use one of these two at the bottom. I think just for you on your special day is quite nice. Let's use that one. And this piece of vellum is just about the right size to fit this on. So I'm just going to lay that down and make sure that that's square on the paper. There we go. And because I'm doing this in gold, I'm going to use the Wow embossing pad, which is clear. So I'm just going to give that a good ink. Again, using every part of the folder, or the ink pad. And then I'm just going to stamp that straight on. Holding that down, making sure we get a good impression. And then I shall use a piece of scrap paper, and I will just pour my gold embossing powder all over it, just to make sure we've got good coverage. Tap that off, probably just give that another scoop. And with this kind of embossing, you need to do it straight away. So I'm just gonna back in actually while I remember, before I start blowing stuff around, otherwise my embossing powder could go everywhere. So let's get that heated. This is very vulnerable, so we don't want to touch it, we don't want to risk smudging it. Gold does look really nice on vellum, and obviously you can see through to the image underneath, which works really well on something with a quite a busy background. Again, flip it over, but be careful it doesn't touch the ground, because if it does, it can stick. So I'm just going to use the magnet from my stamping platform there just to hold it in place. Okay, that's done. I'm just going to pop that away on the side, and I'll give this a clean. And then we can pop that one away too. It's a really nice set, this woodware one, some really lovely sentiments, and in quite a nice modern style as well. Okay, so we finished with our stamping platform now. I can pop that away. And what we need to do now is come back to our main panel. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to use some metallic gilding polish. I want to tie the gold of the sentiment in with the card somehow. At the moment we've got nothing that links it together. What I'm going to do is brush gold around the edge of this so that we do. So I'm just going to open this, and these have a little sponge in the top, which is good if you wet. So I'm just going to put that onto my cloth and just get it a little bit wet. I might actually just give that a little spray with my mister. Okay, and then you pop that in here. I suggest use a piece of scrap. You can see that's quite wet actually. Use a piece of scrap paper. Take a little bit maybe off, because you can see there's a hell of a lot on there. And all we're going to do, I think I've gone a bit crazy there with the water actually, is we're going to hold it and go around the edge. You can see I've actually spotted a bit on there already. But basically we're just going to do this. We want an uneven edge, so the drier it can be, maybe the better. Basically we just run round it like this. Might do, oh there you go, I've done actually something there I didn't really intend on doing, but I was about to say we might actually do some blobs just to give it a little bit more interest. I hadn't intended on quite going so mad, but maybe that was the crafting gods telling me to do that. There we go. This is what we like about crafting. There are no mistakes. So up the sides, I'm keeping it fairly basic. But in those corners, that's where we can actually maybe go a little bit more crazy. Okay, just get a little bit more colour on there. There we go, that's quite interesting. This is troubling me slightly. I think I need to do something with that just to kind of make it not stick out quite so much. So there we go. Let's just tone that down a little bit. This is great. And when you close these, you are supposed to, I believe, spray the top to stop it drying out, and then also spray the sponge as well. Actually, I've got a real mess around that. I'm just going to give that a proper clean with my cloth, which I think I shall need to wash. There we go, and then I can pop that back in its pot. Okay, I need to just give this a clean now. It's really good to keep a damp cloth beside you when you're crafting. You use it all the time. There we go. Again, with the heat gun, let's give it a clean. I need to clean my hands as well. I seem to have gold finger all of a sudden. We don't want gold going where we don't want it. So let's just give that a dry now. And I'm also just going to blot that just in case any of that comes off, which that one just did. It does tend to stay quite wet, so it's not a bad idea to kind of blot it just with a piece of paper. There we go. Okay, great. So what we're going to do now, we're going to pick one of those colours and we're going to do an edge around the card. I'm thinking the pink, the picked raspberry, the darkest colour, just to give it a bit of dark and a bit of contrast. So literally go in with the picked raspberry. We know this piece of paper is roughly the right size, so we just need a generally even application of ink all the way around. You could use a piece of similarly coloured paper, but by doing this with the ink, you know it's absolutely the right colour because it tones in with the colour you've used on the card. Very simple and very straightforward. Just check that you've got that roughly the right place. Yep. So there we go. And also I'm just going to go around the edges as well. Don't want a white edge where the paper has been cut. Okay, that's done. Give the desk a clean again. I'm just drying the mat because the mat is quite wet. Now, let's start to put this together. So the first thing we need to do is pop our sentiment across. So we need to decide roughly where we want it. I'm thinking actually this looks like a slightly bigger gap than the bottom one. That's one, I shouldn't really use inches. That's 3.2. Yeah, that's 2.5. So I'm thinking the sentiment would be better at the bottom of the card. Sort of like that. So wherever you decide you're going to put it, just lay it down roughly. And then what we'll do is we'll put some double-sided on the back, which is what we'll adhere our vellum with. And then what we'll do is we'll just use the grid lines on our cutting mat to ensure it's level. So I'm just popping that down. I'm grabbing my tweezers, I'm lifting up this double-sided. And then I'm going to square off against something on my cutting mat. So I'm just going to take that up to the nearest corner. Make sure that's level, and then line this up somehow. So I'm just going to take that to that line and that line there. Now the best thing to do is stick one side, just fold it and stick it, and then just lift it up and see how that looks. Yep. Yeah, that's good. Then go back on your grid because you need to make sure you're still square. And make sure you press down on the card so that the vellum is stretched. There we go. Now we could cut this or just tear this excess off. basically there's our vellum. It's slightly over to one side. I'm going to put a few little dots on this side. Okay, now the other thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to go in with some glue just on the back of this, just to stick this down. The trick here is to stick it where one of the words is. So I'm going to put it underneath where the O of 4 is. So get your glue just about ready to come out and pop that down somewhere where it won't be seen. There we go. And then just hold that for a second or two just to let it stick. And that stops your vellum lifting. Flip your card over and just give it a rub from the other side. It's all very well doing these vellum strips like this, but you do kind of need something to anchor it in the middle. You can't put double-sided because obviously you'd see it. So it's kind of good just to do a tiny little bit of glue. Right, now we need to just put double-sided all the way around, and we're into kind of finishing our card now. It doesn't take that long to make a card like this. I think we've been filming for about 25 minutes, and obviously I have shown you the whole process, including how we did the colourful background as well. So just get your double-sided. I'm going to stick some in the middle as well. We don't want this to lift up. And we can do bunny ears here just to make sure, because we do need to line it up. Although I am going to decide on how wide the border is as I lay it down, because I may trim some off. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got our panel. I'm going to stand up for this because I can't really see too clearly. And I think actually we can probably just blob it down right in the middle. There we go, I quite like that. So actually I'm not going to trim that. I'm going to leave it as it is. Being careful how you touch it, just in case any of that gold is still a little bit damp. I'm just going to give that a press over with a piece of kitchen towel just to make sure it's absolutely pressed down. Again, turn it over and do it from the back where fingerprints do not matter. Okay. Then all we need to do is grab a 12 by 17 card blank, which I'm quickly doing now. Fold that in half and just score it. There we go. And then that's our card. Now we have a choice. We could put some gold around the outer edge as well. I'm actually thinking I quite like it as it is. I think just with the plain pink. So I think I'm just going to finish it like that. But you could do that. It would tie the two panels together. Personal choice. No mistakes in card making. This time, again, we're going to do bunny ears so that we've got a little bit of wiggle room. And then just stick that down to our card base. Always check your card over just to make sure you haven't got any marks you need to cover up before deciding which is the front. So again, I'm just doing this by eye. You've got that in the place you want it. Then peel off the strips and press that down. See how nice and even the pink is? It just goes to show you, you don't always need to be reaching for paper pads. You can quickly make your own backing. There we go. That's pretty much done. I think I probably will just add a Nouveau drop here because there's a little tiny speck of gold there, which I'm not really happy with, but I was going to do this anyway. So when you use these Nouveau drops, always give the bottle a little bit of a massage before you start, just to make sure that the drops are warmed up. That way you get an even flow. Turn the bottle upside down and tap it a few times on the lid. Always do a practice one, just to make sure. See, I got a little spurt then. If I'd done that on my card, that could have screwed things up. It's always a good idea to just do a little practice one and keep the bottle turned that way up. So I'm going to do this now. I'm just going to do probably, I could do one that side and two this side maybe. So I'm going to go in on the paper, build up my drop, and then off the top, again, trying to get pretty much the same size, and then one this side. There we go. Quickly put the lid on, and then the secret tip that my friend Kate showed me, flick your card from underneath. I'm actually flicking quite hard. That kind of gets the Nouveau liquid to just balance itself out. And there's our project for today, just for you. So a lovely little floral neutral background on a gradiented ombre we did from pink to wild honey. And then we've obviously gold the edges. We've put the embossed strip across, just anchoring that in the middle, added a few Nouveau drops, and then mounted it obviously on a piece of white paper that we coloured in the same colour. There you go. That's a card in 30 minutes, which is not bad. So if you like that, please click the like button. It does help. And also maybe think about subscribing to my channel, where I've got lots of other videos about techniques and card making. Thanks for watching. Crafts by John UK on obviously YouTube, also TikTok, also Instagram, and my Etsy store as well. Thanks for watching.